Welcome to Two Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. My name is Pete, and my co-host Robbie is back. That's right. He was on a vacation. Do you want to let them know where you were? It was pretty sweet.
So I spent 7 days in Ireland playing golf with 11 drunk guys. So I was the only one sober amidst an entire nation of intoxicated people, which was it was tested. But I made it out alive, and we were in Northern Ireland. And it was a ton of fun, very, very interesting. And all the guard gates are down in Northern Ireland if you haven't been there anytime recently. So, but it is it's a crazy time there.
You were really just going to check out the venue for Notre Dame Navy, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they were a week. What is it? A week from now?
It's
a bunch
getting
of people
close, man. I think it's a week and a half or so.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to do a cheers in a second here, have Robbie kick that off, but we also have a very special guest on tonight's show. If you're watching on YouTube, you're already seeing him. He's the mind behind Every Day Should Be Saturday. You might know him from Shutdown Fullcast or his work on the SEC network with the show Thinking Out Loud, or even from his most recent endeavor at Channel 6 with Holly Anderson. He wears many hats. Spencer Hall has joined the show. Spencer, thank you for being here.
Thank you for putting up with my lengthy career description.
I didn't know whether I should insert Banner Society or some other things that you've done, because there has been a lot. But we are so great as two college football nerds who've been following your work for a long time. This is truly an honor. So again, thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait to pick your brain a little bit. We're going to get to VT camp updates a little bit later in the show after we cut Spencer loose, probably. But some may be weaved into the conversation as we go. I did want to get to the latest from realignment, or de-alignment, as the full cast has called it. I can hear the listeners groaning on the other end of the podcast because people are so worn out from realignment, but we need to cover what happened last week. And that was the ACC presidents meeting to discuss the addition of Cal and Stanford, and to a lesser extent, SMU. These schools would come in at a lower share of the money initially, and SMU for perhaps as long as 5 or 7 years because they're so desperate to get in a conference. And Notre Dame was pushing for those California schools in particular to be part of the conference. At least that was the reporting. And they do have a vote in expansion despite not being a full football member. Thamel reported that discussions to add the schools had hit some roadblocks, which I think some of the VT fans were grateful for. And then there was more reporting from Auerbach, 40, and Spencer's buddy Richard Johnson that there was no vote per se, but the 4 schools opposed to the additions were Florida State, Clemson, UNC, and NC State, 4 of the older ACC members and part of the Magnificent Seven. Some schools may have softened on this. Some schools had ADs and presidents disagreeing on the additions, but the things are fluid, and that was from the reporting. Even though it seems like these additions are going to be shot down, this seems very reactionary. Is that your read on it, Spencer?
Yeah, and it's, I think, indicative of the ongoing political divisions inside the ACC, which by that I primarily mean the schools that actually make football money deeply begrudging sharing it with schools that do not, which that's at the root of the ACC. Like, identity-wise, you have to understand that the football schools were brought in when football was whacking yay much of the tail. And now football is not just the tail, it's the hindquarters, the lungs, everything pretty much up to the nose of the dog that is college football as a franchise. And I think that inevitably they're vulnerable. Like, the ACC will always be vulnerable in this format, just because you've got schools that really don't have a whole lot in common. They really don't. Like, anytime you affiliate yourself with an ocean, I think you're vulnerable. You should really not describe yourself in terms of an ocean, because that's a big umbrella, and big umbrellas tend to collapse very, very easily in high winds. And this sort of, like, what does Boston College have to do with Clemson, right? What does Virginia Tech have to do with, Syracuse? Like, these are schools that there's not a lot of overlap when it comes to common interest, other than we like to play football and have a full schedule.
Yeah.
So I think it'll remain vulnerable. In fact, like, in terms of remaining Power 4 conferences, and that feels really weird to say now that the Pac-12 is no more, But in terms of remaining conferences, they're next. Like that's you should just anticipate full consolidation and collapse here, because what I think is going to happen, and I've written about this on the Channel 6 newsletter if you would care to subscribe and read, you're going to have a merger between the two sort of mega conferences. That's ultimately what you're getting, because that's what happens in sports. We don't actually want competition. What you actually end up wanting is you say, well, you know, we could just make a lot more money if we created one big league, which is ultimately what you're going to get when whatever the Big Ten becomes and whatever the SEC becomes merged together. That's what you get. Happened in the NFL, happened in the NBA, happened in Major League Baseball to some extent, happened in the NHL, and just recently happened in the PGA. America loves a merger, man, right? It's the big dumb thing, and it creates a company that everyone hates.
Yes.
Yeah, it does feel. It's funny because even if they were to add these schools, and in this reaction, you didn't want any of them before when schools were available, and now you're going to take the scraps and add them. There doesn't seem to be much money in it, so I don't think it'll ultimately happen. But one day, I do believe we're probably going to get to what you're saying. And for VT fans, they and a lot of these other schools, this Magnificent Seven school that do take football somewhat seriously, like we want out of this unserious conference. And it's so apparent that there seems to be this desire of supporting and blowing up the Olympic sports for whatever reason in this conference. And that's clearly what Stanford could bring, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense.
No, and Virginia Tech's model in this, I think, you're blessed in that your in-state rival in a state that really can't support two Division I football programs. Not an uncommon problem. Mississippi has this. Frankly, Alabama has this. It's amazing that Alabama as a state has two FBS level programs that are both top 25 worthy, especially given its small population. So, you know, the idea that both UVA and Virginia Tech could not both be successful top 25 programs at the same time is absurd. It's just that UVA's never cared. Like UVA makes a slight commitment to football every now and then. Sometimes they look out and get a George Welch, who might be one of the most underrated coaches given what the rest of UVA's football history looks like. So Virginia Tech is blessed through no effort of their own by having an in-state rival that just sometimes forgets to play football, sometimes forgets to commit. So it has other aspirations as an institution. Not that Virginia Tech doesn't, okay? But they have a clear institutional commitment that football is part of their brand. That's not necessarily the case at UVA. So if Virginia Tech can go ahead and make the argument that it brings the state of Virginia, it doesn't have a geographical advantage. It absolutely does not. That is just a quirk of history and geography, that Blacksburg is all the way up there and yet manages to be better at football than the school that's all the way down there, closer to where a lot of the talent lives. If Virginia Tech can establish that and maintain that, you know, it doesn't even have to be at the Beamer level. It'll still be an attractive pull for a conference. But is it okay if we just speak uncomfortable truths here?
Absolutely.
You need UVA to suck and suck hard for a long time, right? And to make sure that they are as unattractive a football property as possible. And two, it might not work. It really might not, which is where Virginia Tech ends up. I mean, I think there will be a college football within college football, if that makes sense. I think once you get a large super league of some degree and you get 36 schools, right? In order to be one of those 36, there's going to be a massive commitment of resources, but there's also going to be a lot of very callous demographic math that gets done, i.e. A school like USC will automatically be in because it sits in the middle of Los Angeles and has all of those trophies and, you know, celebrated, you know, historical championships, etc. For Virginia Tech, it's hard. Virginia Tech might end up on the outside of that. And in that case, Virginia Tech will be playing in a slightly different tier. I don't even know if financially what it'll look like. I think it's where some of the Big 12 will end up. I think it's where a lot of the ACC will end up. There are schools that won't end up in that, like, whatever final 36, 32 teams that will still be really good. And you'll still have interplay, I think, between those big sort of, you know, Premier League of college football level teams. You know, we're deep into like science fiction territory here. Bear with me. You know, I think Virginia Tech is in that like upper second tier and is very much a borderline pick for, you know, your final like quartile of FBS teams. It's right there. It's a very, very hard place to be. And I say that out of deep sympathy because I've been to Blacksburg. I love it. I think Virginia Tech has punched above their weight for so long, but it's a difficult job. All right. Yeah. And it's in a hard spot geographically.
I think most Virginia Tech fans, looking on it themselves honestly, would put them. We would say we're definitely on the outside of the 36 right now. I mean, that's just the way it's fallen, and we picked a really, really shitty time to be on bad times in football, like the most dangerous time to be in a bad place. Absolutely. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's critical that we get good and we get good fast. It seems as if Florida State will not be announcing by tomorrow that they're out of the ACC with their JP Morgan money or whatever it was going to be. And so we're safe from annihilation at this point. But I do agree. We're on that line. We have the fan base support similar to an NC State, but a better history and I think a better fan base on the whole, committing to going to games, all that kind of stuff. So we're right there in that middle of the pack. And regardless of where we end up one day, the addition of these nerd schools to the ACC doesn't make sense, but does fit in line with the Channel 6 ACC preview, because it was a very funny piece in which the conference was compared to a combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell.
That's right.
The quote being, the ACC is deeply unbelievable packaging of dissimilar assets under a uniform umbrella. And there was a lot of different quotes that I could have picked, but that seemed to sum up the thought of the conference very well. And you have some of your more substantial Pizza Huts, and then you have some of your mid-tier Taco Bell meals, which are still solid, but but that's us and the NC States at times. It was pretty perfect the way you put it. And the quality of the conference is similar to the quality of food, which is reliably mid. No team, our issue is no team's been that second or that third team over the past 6 to 7 years. Florida State, we'll see about them this year. But we're waiting for that second and third powers to emerge, like you have your Michigan and your Ohio State and now your Penn State. And until that happens, the ACC is going to really have a rough time. With so much history in this conference and some of the schools being fairly wealthy, why do you think the ACC hasn't been able to find its football footing for really since Florida State's Jimbo run and even maybe before that?
I think a lot of the schools are in direct competition with more established powers in other conferences. It is a miracle that Clemson has been this good this long, given its neighborhood. Look around, look at the schools that it's competing against head to head. And the job that Dabo Swinney has done, making that an institution and a constant presence, it's astonishing. Say what you will about him, and I will, and a lot of other people will too. But him keeping Clemson this organizationally intact, present, and relevant for this long, that is like a Taylor Swiftian run of relevance, right? Like that is staying on the charts and getting bigger and making sure that you're always somewhere on the air. That's what Clemson is, recruiting wise and on the field. They've managed to do it with a lot of turnover in the coaching staff too, right? For better and worse. There's some drama there, but even that kind of drama results in a disappointing 10-win season. So it's amazing that they've been that good that long, given the neighborhood they're competing in. I think the ACC also, historically, that's a basketball conference. It really is. And a lot of the best athletes don't end up playing football or didn't historically end up playing football. And I don't know how much that has changed even with the increase in football money, because, a lot of these schools that they've added, like the value adds for the ACC back in the day were Virginia Tech and Miami. You come into the league, we're going to add Virginia Tech and Miami. Miami lost its recruiting advantage because everybody takes South Florida now. Everybody. And they used to be able to wall off Dade County and Broward County and take the best, and everyone else had to take the rest. They went in the tank. That stopped, and South Florida is no longer even close to a slight secret in terms of a recruiting hotbed. It's where everybody pulls talent from. So their pipeline got cut off quick. Virginia Tech's best players, and correct me if I am wrong, this was a big Tidewater territory, massive Tidewater territory. No longer a secret, no longer the sole province of Frank Beamer and company. Other people grab that talent too. So a lot of it's historical recruiting hotbeds as a conference. I just picked two examples of that. And they went dry, or they became, or they yielded less talent with more competition than they did before. And I think another part of it is management. I think a lot of it is bad hiring. I think a lot of it are hires that just didn't work out. I don't want to call all of those hires bad, but there were just some that didn't work. Some are fluky. Like, I think Bronco Mendenhall was a really good hire at UVA. I think he did a really good job. And then he just got tired of it.
Yep.
And he quit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you can't do anything about that. And you take a pretty nice piece, not a cornerstone of the conference. I wouldn't call them that football-wise. But you take them and you boot them out. Then you have other guys who just, they're in weird locations that don't necessarily pull the kind of attention that used to. I'm thinking specifically of Syracuse, which Syracuse, it's an odd program. It's an odd fit. It's in an odd space. They have to recruit a very specific kind of player to get there and to stay there. That hire, I don't think, like, when you go, like, did that hire work out? Did the Dino Babers hire work out? And I go, not exactly.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not exactly. He might have saved his job last year by starting so well, but
Yeah.
it's not pretty.
It's not what you expected. Right?
No. No. And you make a lot of good points. The recruiting in the state football at a high school level in a lot of the states that we're in, Massachusetts, New York, upstate New York, even the 757 you talked about, like, the talent isn't what it used to be. Now there's still a lot of talent, Richmond and Northern Virginia and stuff, but you make a very good point. And Clemson, you mentioned how astonishing it is how good they've been for so long. They dealt with the same problems that we do, and they're like where we are. Clemson is in the middle of nowhere. And so you are right. Like, the Frank Beamer run, while not as successful as Clemson's run, is similar in nature. And you're right.
I think a better job, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I think Beamer did a better job than Dabo's done there, just because the floor was, there wasn't a floor.
We never had a natty. Yeah.
But
It was
we never had
non-existent.
anything. And Clemson's dealing with it now. I mean, South Carolina's coming in and giving them headaches right now with Shane's coming in recruiting really well. So they're not even immune to, the damages of the recruiting. And I think your point is so interesting if we flash this forward, because you have Georgia. They can recruit that state. You take somebody like LSU, but Alabama and Auburn, what's that recruiting gonna look like moving forward? Can states moving forward into a 36 really sustain two schools? Any state outside of maybe like a California or a Florida, it's gonna be wild, and we'll see.
And we were talking about states like Virginia has added an FBS school like every year for 4 years now. Like, there's a lot of FBS schools in Virginia.
I didn't even mention that. You guys are getting in-state competition from
JMU's
schools
good.
Dude, listen, JMU will be, like, I think they already have a claim to be the best run program in the state right now. Like, that's the best managed program.
Yeah.
And it's the one that honestly probably has the most potential. Because, you've seen what Virginia Tech looks like at full throat. You've seen what they look like when the volume's up and what it looks like. Looks pretty good. There's a lot of potential. But we've been close to it before. We haven't scratched what JMU can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a scary thought, right? And you got to kind of keep them at bay and hope they don't start popping up into I love the Sun Belt, but it right now it's just a little bit lower of a conference than we're in, but it's a fear going forward, having ODU and JMU and UVA all competing. Like, we need to stay a step ahead. Like, that's why we need Pry to kind of be the guy to cure some of those failures that Fuente had here. And so there is, like, with regard to the ACC, let's move forward just a little bit here. There's reason for hope, I think, this year with the conference, and it would be a good year for us to look good, because I think the quarterback play in the ACC could be significantly better. If we looked at last year, outside of Drake May and Jordan Travis, Devin Leary, TVD, Armstrong, Jerkovic, DJ, like, they all kind of fell flat of expectations, like way below where we were hoping they'd be. Like, we thought Tyler Van Dyke was going to be potentially, a draft pick or something. I mean, he had a lot of hype coming into last year. This year, with some of these guys moving around in the conference, Drake May coming back, Jordan Travis coming back, you got Klubnik. I'll put up the list here. Do you think, Spencer, that this is a year where the ACC could benefit from these quarterbacks really like taking a step forward. I think top to bottom, it could be the best conference of quarterbacks.
It's a very good one. I don't know if I'm going to say best, but it is competitive. How's that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ifs here. A lot of ifs. Yeah, I will tell you that the upside, if I was looking at upside, your delta from last year to this year, the delta's looking pretty sexy, y'all. Because, and I say that because you have so many good quarterbacks who might be iffy in terms of existing record, but I think are going to end up in really cozy spots, right? I'm talking mostly about Klubnik and Van Dyke, because both of them, I think, are going to end up in situations. Clemson's going to run the crap out of the ball, y'all. Clemson, I don't know if you know this about Garrett Riley, but they run the ball much more than they pass.
That's something I learned from your piece, actually.
Yeah,
I didn't really know that to a man, but it was interesting.
And running the ball fixes everything. Running the ball fixes everything if you can do it half effectively. You don't have to do it full effectively. You don't have to rely on it as the main bread and butter. You just have to do it in order to make people respect run lanes and open up the passing game. That's it. And I think they're going to do a very good job of that because they have Will Shipley at running back and a pretty good offensive line. Not great, but pretty good. Van Dyke, I think last year he was asked to do too much. I do not think he is a full field read quarterback at all. And I think that's okay in college. I think if you can give somebody one or two good options, that's really all somebody with that kind of arm really needs. You'll live or you'll die with him. He will make mistakes. But I think that with a simplified system where he's got a little more protection in the run game and doesn't have to do as many kind of like RPO reads, I don't think that was a great fit for him. I think that's one reason why they made the change at offensive coordinator. So I think Van Dyke, when things are simplified, Van Dyke is very much, by the way, a like let's rock QB, right?
Yeah.
Like he is very much what is our language rating here?
You can do whatever you want.
Hey, but he's very much a fuck it we ball quarterback. Like he is 100% that dude.
Like a Brett Favrean type.
Listen, he's gonna throw an interception. He's not gonna feel bad about it because he gets to throw another pass, right? Like that's it. He's like, well, I'll get the next one. Like he's very much that kind of dude. Phil Jerkovic. Oh man, I'm not putting a Pitt guy on this list. A Pitt guy that's a game manager at best, and that is by design. That is not Phil's fault. Riley Leonard, like him a lot. Garrett Schrader, entertaining. He's very entertaining. Garrett Schrader started at Mississippi State, and I think in his first start took a helicopter hit from a daring run through the defense that no sane man should have taken. So Garrett Schrader is at least going to be entertaining. I like Griffiths. Jack Plummer. If you want to talk about somebody, just take your upside and go expected yardage. Like if you could get a bet on expected yardage and just take that.
Yes.
Brome will make you productive. He will 100% make you productive.
And he was productive with Cal. So he's got to have some production with Louisville.
The betting lines are going to be high on that. Real high.
If you want to talk about somebody, by the way, who is another bombs away offensive guy who also believes the run fixes things, 100% Brome. They will make you respect the run to the point where you get a lot of good looks downfield. And Grant Wells needs to hand the ball off.
Yeah.
We're going through all of them. Grant Wells needs to just hand the ball off. There's nothing wrong with that because y'all are going to have a defense and you should just go back to your roots. Let's just everybody looks at Virginia Tech and they're like, oh, I don't know about the offense. I'm like, since when have we cared?
Yeah.
That's since when have we cared? The Virginia Tech teams that were really great had some of the most plotting high school grade strategic offenses.
Yes. Good defense
seen.
And run the ball. That's
just punt. Just punt, baby. It's fine.
And Brent Pry has said he does want to have a run game. He wants to focus on it. He wants to have a quarterback that can run the football a little bit more this year. And so that is going to be a focus. And Grant Wells, he can move for being in that air raid system at Marshall and having a good gun. Like he can move with his legs a little bit. So whether or not he beats out drones, which I do think that he will, and Rob and I will talk about that a little bit later. We're going to run the football. And so the pressure of him to make plays with his arms, hopefully won't be as high as long as Malachi Thomas and Bayshal Tootin, the transfer from NC Central, I think, is good. If they're healthy and playing well, will have some success in the offense. But back to the quarterbacks, yes, I agree with Spencer. To be the best conference, you have to beat out the Pac-12 this year because for quarterbacks, because they have Bo Nix, they have Caleb Williams, which I never thought I'd be adding Bo Nix to a top quarterback in the league.
No, we're all there.
But Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Cam Rising, and Penix, that's a killer four. And so what hinges on the ACC being the premier quarterback conference is really TVD, Armstrong, and to a lesser extent, Jerkovich, like having those new OCs, Armstrong fitting back in with a nide on NC State. He doesn't have the weapons maybe that he did at UVA, but like that could be really explosive.
Yeah,
I think the Jerkovich is my favorite is that he's got 2 teams on his schedule that he played for, which is probably the first time I think that I've ever heard of that happening, which is incredible.
Pitt likes their quarterbacks well-traveled. Like, I think it's very hard to look at Pat Narduzzi as somebody who even like wants the offense to be good. Like, I think he wants them to be a little inert so he could just punt and play defense.
Yeah, because they had Slovis last year. A little bit of a journeyman himself, and now they're bringing in Jerk. And Jerkovich, he's shown flashes, and we'll see if he reignites some of that form he had with Signetti before. One last question before we move exclusively, just a last few tech questions. Who do you have winning the conference this year in the ACC? Do you have a pick?
Clemson. I'm not an original or innovative thinker. I do think that Florida State is right there. And I think that Florida State, they're my favorite team to watch in the conference because they play with such aggression and confidence. It's just like if they miss a play, like, you've seen like there are teams that are disciplined, and teams that are disciplined when they miss a play, they come back and they correct the issue. When Florida State misses a play, they just don't care, man. They just, they're like, we'll get it back. They're very much the Tyler Van Dyke category of
play. The ball again.
Yeah, and I think that's straight from Norvell. He's a guy who I think when I think back to like my favorite teams of the century, several of them, I think there's like 1 or 2 of those Memphis teams on there because those Memphis teams are hilarious. It didn't really matter who they had; they would just make it work. And their tight end would be open, and they would get the right screen at the right time, and they might be down 21, and it was fine. So I like that kind of insurgent football. I really do. I think it's really, really fun to watch. I don't think they're quite there talent-wise with Clemson, and the addition of Garrett Riley at offensive coordinator, I think, starts to fix. I didn't say fixed, but I think it starts to fix a lot of the kind of. I think they got stale. I think they got real fixed in their ways, and they got real easy to read as a result, which is why the run game still works. Because you might read the run game and tough, you can't block it, right? You can't block it. But I think it hurt. I think they might have lost a good potential QB in DJ Uiagalelei in terms of development. I just don't think they got lucky twice. They got lucky twice.
Very lucky.
They got super lucky with Trevor Lawrence in that they changed quarterbacks to a freshman, and it turns out that freshman had poise beyond his years. Like not just okay, he plays like a sophomore. No, he played like a senior.
Yeah.
So they got extremely lucky, and then they actually had to develop a quarterback and sort of struggle with him, and they didn't catch the timing right. They didn't have the right guy. They didn't have the right talent. And I think that, I hope big things for DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State. I hope he does really well there. He's in very good hands. That is one of the best coaching staffs in the country.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Yes.
I hope so. I hope they do so many things to just make a quarterback super comfortable, right? They run the ball. They give you shifts to make the defense, clarify so that you can see what you see pre-snap. Like they just do a lot of cool stuff, man. And I think hopefully he'll reboot and do well there. I think
with the pressure off as well. I mean, that's a fan base where they have expectations.
Your expectation is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
That's not great to follow. That's for sure.
No, like what? Your low end there is what? Taj Boyd,
right?
Taj Boyd was awesome.
He was incredible.
Yeah. It was amazing.
He blew people up, man. Like that's you don't want that. You want Kate Klubnik, who's already had this quiet year of being somewhat productive. And then you get a new OC, and now he's going to have a lot of open looks. He's going to have a lot of easy throws. And so I think it'd be hard to not pick Clemson for just based on the moves that they made this offseason. But Florida State, man, Florida State's right there.
Yeah, Florida State's one of those teams. They're never going to be out of a game, and I think you mentioned that they're just the no lead is going to be safe against that team. That's really what it's all about with them. Moving to us, your Virginia Tech preview in that article was short.
Yes.
Just a little blurb.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, good. I mean, it wasn't a great year for us. It said, this is the quote, another scrimmage year for one of ACC's most drastic rebuilds, but they do have a Georgia Southern transfer named Derek Canteen. So, there's that. And Derek Canteen has low-key been the best transfer we brought in. Every coach raves about him. Every coach we have raves about him. He's going to be our nickel guy. And it's perfect because he's kind of a safety, kind of a corner, and that's perfect for the nickel old school whip Virginia Tech, which they're will be substituted for a star linebacker at times, but Canteen's going to be really, really good for us. I'm excited about that addition.
Yeah, if you can take a guy from somewhere south of Macon, do it. Just kind of in general, like, I don't know, he's kind of a project. Take him, because all those dudes have no hobbies, right? There's nothing. There's not a lot to do. So they footballed very hard, right? And they played in really hot circumstances. So chances are when you take them to the mere 90 degrees of the Virginia Tech practice field today, they got miles to go before they get tired. The preview was short, but like Tech's defense on the whole, when you look at the depth chart, right? Not that I have studied it to the extent you guys have. But there's promise there. There's some production. There's there's some talent. And if you can be a thorn in someone's side, if you can be an obstruction, and if you can go ahead and be one of those teams that tries to steal it in the fourth quarter, there's potential there, right? And that's really what you need as a program, right? If you could get to 6 wins this year, I mean, would you
fantastic?
Be happy? Yeah, you'd be thrilled, right?
Yes.
This is, by the way, where you're kind of on the same page as a Florida fan. We go, Graham Mertz at quarterback. Okay, so let's get to 6, baby. Let's get to 6. We have a top 5 recruiting class. Let's just hold, baby. Just hold.
Which that recruiting class for Florida came out of nowhere. It was like, it wasn't going well. And then all of a sudden you had all these
great
stars.
Yes.
It was, it's wild. This is Lane Kiffin again coming to the rescue, because Lane Kiffin trolled Florida when Ole Miss pulled a recruit office like on, I think, June 16th or something. And trolled us on Twitter. Yeah. And after that, like, the universe heard Lane Kiffin and was like, oh, he's happy. We can't have that.
None of that.
Yeah, no. So then all of a sudden recruits started. That was, by the way, around the same time when Florida starts getting its NIL together. That's because there was a massive embarrassment when
after
it came
the story,
to losing Jaden Rashada. Who's now at Arizona State for not as much money as he promised, right? NIL's a fickle market, and not that money was ever real, but that's bitter. Not ending up at Arizona State, great place. He'll have a phenomenal time. Arizona State's basically the Florida of the West Coast, right? The University of Florida of the West Coast.
Yes,
you're not going to have a bad time there.
He's not going to have a bad time. It's just the pay will be a little bit lower.
The pay will be a little bit lower, but man, Scottsdale doesn't cost that much.
Nope.
Tempe doesn't cost that much.
No, he gets to see the waste management, so he'll be good.
Greatest golf tournament in the universe.
Another line from the preview that I enjoyed was that all the coaches in the ACC could be nondescript hand puppets named Jeff. And I know that's obviously a joke and a slight exaggeration, because Dabo has a quantifiable personality and is a star, so to speak. But I do agree on the whole, and I assume Brent Pry was one of those faceless Jeffs in that description.
He is. I know he's not. Like, I could find Brent Pry out of a lineup. I can hear his voice.
He's got a good head of hair.
He does have a good head of hair. He's extremely coachy. Like, he's not a Dave Clawson type where you go, this guy's an environmental engineer. This guy's an architect. I can't quite figure it out, maybe he does lighting for really expensive concert tours. Like, he just seems like one of those guys, a technician of some sort. That ain't Brett Pry. Y'all got yourself a football coach.
He's
but
your
really,
uncle that loves ball. That's who he is.
dude, listen, that's exactly it. That's what you want. You want a guy who says the word program. You don't want a guy who says program. And you got one of those. So congrats. By the way, Dabo could be named Jeff though. Look at him.
He looks like a Jeff. He does look like a Jeff. And you know what? We actually lost to Jeff, but we replaced him with a Brent. So now we got 2 Brents in the conference.
My point stands.
Yeah.
As a distant observer to a program, sometimes the objectivity is helpful to diagnose what's going on in a school. Like, oh yeah, that guy is cooked. That's not going to work out. And Mel Tucker comes to mind. Maybe before the Bobby Petrino or even after the Bobby Petrino ad, Jimbo Fisher comes to mind. Like it doesn't look so good. It's not going well. What would be your 10,000-foot view of what's going on at Tech under Coach Pry? And that, do you think your read is the vibes are good? Is it going the right direction?
Vibes are okay. And I think that's probably the best outcome you can have right now. Vibes are okay. And if the vibes go from okay to good this year, that's awesome. That's exactly what you want. And you have to know, and I am speaking again with some sympathy as a fan of a program that is undergoing a steady, slow, but convincing rebuild,
Right.
that you just have to chill, right? And as a fan, there's going to be some moments where you go, this house doesn't look finished, because it's not. You know, you might go through another year where there is nothing resembling offense. Right. And that has so little to do with what the coaches are trying to do on the field or what the players are trying to do. It's a matter of talent. That's it. It is a matter of talent. So if it doesn't look ambitious, there's a reason, right? The defense might have a job, might be doing 3 squares a day, hitting the gym, right? Dating, nice car. The offense is just trying to get out of bed. That's it. Just like trying to brush teeth. And that, again, there's not much you can do to control that at the coaching level right now. You can make them good. You can make sure they hit their assignments right. But sometimes, man, and I think this is what I always want people to understand. Okay. Help me out. NC State had a defensive end, an absolute nightmare first round defensive end about 7 or 8 years ago. Okay. And I cannot remember his name because it is a name that a lot of other football players have.
I remember
Mario Williams. No, not Mario.
Yeah.
Mario Williams was when you started your blog. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was
Not
a lot
Mario
ago.
Williams. No, but I'm not far from. No,
You're right. And he was in that play where like NC State was in that game where they blocked the kick or something, and he was involved. I remember the guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
I will remember this man. Anyway, so he's on the screen. I had a friend of mine, Stephen White, who was on the USF staff at the time, and he was looking at him and was like, man, I don't know if we can block this guy. Like, they're just looking at him and they're like, I don't know what to do. No, it was Mario Williams. Yeah, this was way back when. So it was Mario Williams, 2007. This is when Steven was was doing quality control. Anyway, so he's looking at them and he's going, what do we do? Like, what do we do? And Jim Leavitt, who is still in the game as the defensive coordinator, I believe, at Colorado this year.
USF fame.
Of USF fame. He started that program, and he walks in, and you would expect him as a defensive coordinator who worked with, among other people, Bob Stoops and Brett Venables, and learned under Bill Snyder at a place where they did everything well and they had answers for everything. Jim Leavitt walks in the room. It's all dark. The door opens up, and he's sort of silhouetted, and he looks. And they go, yeah, man, we're looking at Mario. You got any suggestions? And he looks at him and goes, good luck with that, Joker. And he shuts the door.
Oh my God.
That's it.
That's hilarious.
And like that's going to be the case for a lot of Virginia Tech dudes, particularly on offense this year. The dude across from you, you're like, you can come up with as many stunts and you can come up with as many screens as possible to get around this guy. But sometimes you're going to face 2 or 3 teams where they're just better at every point.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realized that during the season last year, just how untalented our roster was. And since the year ended, and even going back to last year too, of the 20 plus transfers that have hit the portal since Brent Pry got here, 12 of them have gone to community college or FCS.
Yeah.
And I dare you to find any school in the country, any Power 5 school in the country that has had more FCS transfers than our school. Like it was so wholly untalented. It's something that I don't think most Tech fans realized while it was going on. And it takes time. It's not just going to happen in 18 months or what will be, a season and an off season and a full season. It's going to take more time. But I do think probably did a good job in the portal this year, did a good job with some of the recruits and hopefully developing some of the guys that are here. But we are firmly on the ball coach plan, as you put it, where it's not, we're not going to be a factory, a recruiting factory team. That's not what we're going to do. We need coaches that know how to coach, know how to develop. And yes, we can pull those 4 stars from Richmond and out of North Carolina and none such, but there's only going to be so many. So we're going to have to coach them up.
Yeah. The good news is that with the portal and player mobility being better than it's ever been, your talent level, it can go up pretty appreciably very quickly. So yes, be patient, but also know if you're looking in the right places, Florida State's a great example of this. You can find guys who were under scouted and developed late and can be a real asset to your program. Florida State's done a really good job of that.
Oh yeah. That's why I do really like Florida State this year. And all the things you said about Clemson have me rethinking my thought process on that. But like, that's going to be a showdown. And hopefully we'll get to see it twice.
Speaking of a totally different approach to the portal. Totally. Do you know the number of transfers that Clemson has taken this year?
Like one?
One.
Yeah.
Uno. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow, Dabo hates the portal.
He hates the portal.
I'm pretty sure that guy's already been at Clemson too. Like I think that guy was either like recruited or spent like a summer that. Yeah, like I'm not getting it totally right, but like the guy that they brought in was already theirs to one respect. So like yeah, that's a totally different approach to it. Whereas teams like Florida State and Virginia Tech, business is open.
Yeah. He's gonna ride that hate for the transfer for all the way. Like he can't go back.
He'll change his tune.
He can't.
He'll change his tune if he starts losing.
Yeah.
That's Mike Krzyzewski absolutely hated the new wave in college basketball until he figured out how to do it. And Nick Saban absolutely hated the spread offense until it became the thing that got them into a second round of dynasties. So yeah.
Yep.
If you're going to be the best coach, you need to learn to adapt. And that was a great point on Krzyzewski and as well as Saban. I got a couple more things and we'll let you go. What should the on-field identity be for Virginia Tech when just overall, and then maybe on offense? What should VT be known for? Is it the traditional Beamer ball style?
Yeah, it's the traditional Beamer ball style, but it's also a great underdog strategy, which Virginia Tech will be an underdog. So you can go one of two ways as an underdog. You can attempt to create as many snaps in a game as possible in order to hope that something good happens, or you can try to shorten the game. That's it. Pick one. And I think it's very clear that with a defense that is the strength of the team, you want them on the field as little as possible. And with an offense that is not the strength of the team, you want them to go as slow and deliberately as possible and eat clock and kick and every drive with a kick. But in your case, that'll probably mean field goals and punts most of the time, and hope the defense does good things. You're going to want to go very old school because it still works. Like that's the thing. Football can work a lot of different ways, but there are a few that are tried, true, and never really go out of style. And it's the style that Virginia Tech rode to prominence the first time that they really attained national prominence. And I think it's the thing that's going to get them back on track again if they can do it. Defense is not a lost art, but it's not far from a lost art.
Yeah.
So if you can be the team that nobody wants to face, if you can be the body blow team, if you can be the team that, when you catch your wins this season, you probably want to catch, look ahead to the schedule. There's going to be teams that are coming off of bruisers.
I want to play a game with you with this.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So let's do that now. We're going to play Finding Wins. And so we went 3-8 last year, and most fans believe that to be a floor, hopefully. Okay. So I'm putting the schedule up on the screen, and I want you to tell me the 3 most likely wins for Virginia Tech. And if you want to go beyond that, feel free.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take Rutgers.
Nice. I'm going to that game.
Yeah, you're going to beat Rutgers. They're they're not good. I'm going to try to be kind. They're not good.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll say that the most Jersey way I could possibly say it. They're not good.
Water.
Yeah. So I definitely think you beat Rutgers. I think Marshall's a coin flip. That's a coin flip. That's a loss.
That being on the road and after 2 P5s isn't great.
That's not good. It's not good at all. I think getting Syracuse at home that's a good pull.
Thursday night.
I think it's at night. It's on a Thursday. It's a short week. If you just hit Syracuse in the face for 4 quarters, that's pretty much what you want to do, and win it like 10-7. That'd be perfect. Y'all be thrilled with that. I'd be thrilled for you.
That'd be an ACC Thursday night game. That's so perfect.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the score.
That really is.
How do you feel about the opener there, Spencer?
Not touching it with a 10-foot pole. I've seen ODU deliver early stunners before. I'm not gonna. No,
yep.
y'all have seen it as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I don't. Ricky Ronnie in September is a dangerous quantity, so I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. If you want the third one that I think you got, take a road win, baby. I think you beat Virginia.
All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So
I love it. We didn't want to touch ODU either. So yeah. So,
no one would. No one would. You know, that's like for me, like from my perspective as a Florida fan, if I see Kentucky on the schedule now, I'm like, don't touch it. I don't want to know.
It's funny, like that streak finally broke, and now that's like a terrifying game every year.
It's dude, they're mean, man. They're a very mean team.
They play trench football. They really do.
They bring shovels. It's not fun.
That's setting up a tripwire in your own house. Great idea when somebody breaks in, except you don't know where it is, and it's it's 1 a.m. and you're stumbling around at ODU trying to
every game is Home Alone when you play ODU and Virginia Tech.
All right, I got one more question for you here. What game on this schedule has the potential to be the most go ACC game? And I think you know what I mean by that.
I do, and it's November 4th at Louisville.
I almost knew you were going to say that. That's because it really that game is weird. They have a lot of pieces to gel on Louisville this year, and the offense should be good. We're probably going to have to put up some points. It could get a little weird.
That's a weird game, is what you need to know. The most go ACC game we've already talked about, which is a Thursday night game. That's the most go ACC game. But if I can get anything else, if that Saturday game at Louisville is a noon game, and if it's on like at least ESPN 12, that is the most go
the
ACC
CW.
game.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
If Virginia Tech Syracuse was in the Carrier Dome, then it would be like bing, 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 like alarms go off.
Oh, that would be a loss for us. Like
the fact that we get to televise Enter Sandman, that really raises it above the level of Go ACC Classic, right? That's because you'll at least get that November 4th game at Louisville. Oh, that's rich, because that feels like a game. That feels like a game where Louisville, like, they're aggressive, and when you're aggressive, sometimes you make mistakes. And Virginia Tech just eating like 4 turnovers, right? That Louisville
Kelly Lawson goes nuts, knocks down a few balls.
Right. That just feels like a game where like maybe there's a team trying too much, and then there's another team that's like, we're going to do nothing but beat you up and stand here. So like, I think that's the immovable object versus the irresistible force. The opposite of both might be the case there.
It's it's a different coaching staff, but Louisville lost to BC last year. So
that's a talent judgment, and I'm happy with it. Yeah, like that's very, very much like, I like. And in case if you want to take an option on there, Boston College is the next week. That is prime Go ACC territory, first 2 weeks in November.
Yeah, Chestnut Hill for us is usually a house of horrors, so not too pumped about that. And then of course we have Pitt on the schedule, and Pitt will do Pitt things, and you never know with the Pitt game.
I'd hate playing them every year.
It's horrible.
What a frustrating experience.
Yeah.
Cambridge is louder than Chestnut Hill. I went to school there. It's Sleepy Town.
I did want to bring up Spencer's UVA preview, because I tweeted it out from our account earlier, and it got 10,000 views or something, because for a Virginia Tech fan, it was sweet. And it's just that the key thing to remember about UVA, they've never been good at football. They will never be good at football. And if you want information on Virginia's team here, we're here to assure you that no, you don't. and that is perfect because I do think UVA is going to be on the struggle bus this year. And that's music to our ears. And so we appreciate you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I had people in my mentions who very, not truculently, but people who were like, well, they had a good team in 1995. And I'm like, you are proving my point.
Yes. Well,
the Barber brothers.
Yes, the Barber bro. Tiki Barber is their claim to fame. So
yeah.
Yes.
So Spencer, are you drinking anything over there? Just so I can check off that box.
Not at the moment. I came to you guys straight from making dinner.
Okay.
So I'm not doing that, but I have a banh mi.
I love it.
See, that's amazing.
This is the best. We're drinking. I have a non-alcoholic beer. You have a banh mi, and Pete, it's just you.
I've got the 9.5 Juicy Monkey here from Victory. So, and this is actually supreme. So
I will promise a beer. I have some like Founders Breakfast Stout, and I drink like one. I will have one.
Is it 12%? Is that what that one is? It's up there.
I'm not a big numbers guy.
Yeah.
I'll just. What am I?
Founders
a beer accountant.
Is phenomenal. It is.
I was promised there'd be no math.
Yeah.
Are you a standard lager kind of guy? Do you like the crispy boys, pilsners? Like, what's your?
I know. I got two kinds. I like stouts because I don't know. I just kind of I like it to taste like coffee. There's something great in going from drinking coffee all day to drinking beer coffee. So I like stouts and I like Mexicans, baby. Like I like any good old fashioned like Mexican drinking beer. So if you are a Modelo,
you like that Tecate in a can for $3,
dude. You can still get Tecate in a can in New York City for like $3. It's incredible. A miracle.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, like Tecate is great. Modelo is great. Pacifico is magnificent. I love them. They taste like nothing, and you can drink 400 of them and have a wonderful time.
No, that's a good
Spencer,
call.
do you partake in any of the hard liquors, or are you just are you beer guy?
Every now and then, my personal favorite is tequila, which I understand people are like, "Ooh, it's a nightmare." I don't know what you're doing. Tequila is wonderful. All of you are fucking up.
Sipping tequila is good.
Yeah,
and I feel like there's been
a
bit of a resurgence or just a surgence of tequila these days. It's getting much more popular. Everyone's got the white bottle with the blue paint. I can't recall the name at the time, but that's a very popular one.
I'm infuriated at how good celebrity tequilas are. I don't want them to be good, but like Casamigos, you're like, it's good. This sucks. I hate giving it credit. You're like, Terramana, how is it? You're like, it's okay. It's pretty good. I want it to suck, but it doesn't. Like, tequila is delicious. I don't know what you people are doing. Probably doing shots of it. That's very stupid.
You don't want to do shots of Cuervo. Let's put it that way. But
don't do that to yourself. It's delicious. Mezcal. Like, why are you doing a shot of mezcal? Mezcal is just, it's like the stout of, it's not the stout of liquors, but that's probably scotch if we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
But I do that. I drink a little bit of bourbon, but I don't ever want to associate with bourbon snobbery because that just seems dumb. Because it's so close in nature to being like moonshine, like just in terms of like its cousin. And occasionally there is actually a jug of shine somewhere in here. Nice. Which is like, that's like a once a month, like, hey, I got a jug of shine. I should take a shot. You do it and you go, that's it hits you right here. Chest.
Spencer, if you're looking for a recommendation, so out of Richmond, Hardywood Park has a Kentucky Christmas morning beer.
It's a beer.
It is a stout, Kentucky bourbon stout. It is a little bit high in the numbers, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But it is absolutely phenomenal.
It's great.
You can only drink, it's a bomber bottle, so you can only get through. You got to share it with some people, but it's pretty mind blowing. That's probably, if you love stouts and you partake now and again in the bourbon, it's pretty unbelievable.
I like the stout that tastes just like an entire ecosystem. That's my favorite.
It has layers.
Yeah. Like I like one that's an entire biome.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say the thing about bourbon snobbery, because Virginia Tech fans think that Wild Turkey 101 is premium bourbon, so you're not going to get any of that snobbery
They're
here.
Right. I have
And
been there.
I've got some sitting over there. So
it goes really well with the turkey leg.
Yes.
It sure as hell does. It sure does. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on with us. We wanted to ask you what you got coming up. Do you want to plug anything? I mean, I think people know the Twitter handle. It's a very well followed handle. It's just every day should be Saturday. EB. I can't do the letters right now, but
EDSBS.
EDSBS.
Yes. Anything to plug?
Yep. You can subscribe to our college football writings and more at Channel 6 if you would like to pay to read our conference previews. We have done all Power 5 conferences, including one that doesn't exist anymore. The SEC one is this week. Nice. So that's going to be the every SEC game preview, where you just try to write 2 or 3 sentences about every game the SEC will play.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's exhausting.
A lot.
It's dumb. Like, some of them are just so dumb, but you'll get one for every game. So don't say you didn't get your money's worth. Then you can also listen to the Shutdown Fullcast and subscribe to that. That is our, it's the only college football podcast, which is why I'm glad you guys have a Virginia Tech podcast. Otherwise we would have to sue for copyright infringement. So you can subscribe to that. That is the show I host with Jason Kirk, Ryan Nanny, and Holly Anderson.
Great show.
We'll do
Amazing.
that twice a week during the season, once a week in the off season, including a live show just after the games on Saturday. If you're into F1, I also do a podcast with Jessica Smetana called DNF. That is extremely fun. Sometimes do stuff for ESPN there. And from time to time, you'll see me on Debatable on ESPN, wherever you get your social media sports shows.
How do you have any time? Like, I just,
Yeah.
I don't know how you came on with us, but like I said,
feel bad you spending your time with us. We got to send a check over to you. Something like that.
you know what? I'll send you a sticker if you give me your address, but that's
Totally fine. That's the reason I do this is so I can show people, like, my Warhammer figures. That's it. That's the exchange. I have to be like, don't you think that's cool?
That's why I'm showing you my pillow pet back here. The Hokie bird.
Yeah.
But anyway, Spencer, we'll let you go, man. Thank you again for coming on with us.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
I appreciate it.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Really, really enjoyed that. Rob, what are you drinking over there? Let's move to that real quick.
All right. I am having the Closer by the Mile. It's an Athletic Brewing beer. It was a collaboration beer for the Pan Mass Challenge, which is a big Massachusetts biking fundraiser for cancer. They raised like $54 million this year. So yeah, it's like a major thing. So delicious. This is like their second or third year doing this non-alcoholic collaboration beer, and it is very good. And you said what you were having.
Yeah, I'm having the Juicy Monkey. It's a hazy imperial IPA from Victory, which is obviously in Pennsylvania, and they've opened up a couple other brew houses, Delaware or maybe Southeast PA, but regardless, Victory's great, and this beer is freaking awesome. It's 9.5%. You get a lot of the juicy flavors you might expect: pineapple, orange, some Lotus and Sultana hops. That's a hops I haven't even heard of.
Whoa,
it's strong, and the can artwork is cool, and I really like it. So Juicy Monkey Imperial, I would recommend that one. I'm going to do a little ad read now too, because the Too Deep Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by a new sponsor, and that's Rowback. You guys know Rowback. They've been advertising on a lot of other pods, including our buddies Sons of Saturday, but they're a performance active wear designed for those who crave activity. This is the same polo company that had the VT polo, the maroon shirt with the little orange Virginias on it. Right now, they're offering our listeners 20% off their first order using the code 2DEEPVT. That's 2DEEPVT, all one word. They have hoodies, tees, quarter zips, shorts, joggers, women's stuff. They got my wife just ordered a tennis skirt, and of course, they have polos. So a little birdie also told me there may be a Virginia Tech shirt coming back to Rowback. So
really?
keep your eyes peeled for that. Go on their site, load up your cart, and use code 2DEEPVT to get 20% off that order. Rowback, crave activity.
I will also add that Rowback has some serious golf polos as well. So I'm a big golfer. They got some legit shirts on there. So they are very well known for some really good golf polos as well.
I'm going to tweet out a picture of a golf themed polo tomorrow from over. I already have it screenshotted. It's called the beverage cart.
Nice.
I think it might just be called the Bev cart, but either way, it's got that kind of artwork on it, and I'll tweet that out from the account tomorrow with the code for you guys. Camp notes. Let's finish up with some fun stuff here, man, because we didn't want to grill Spencer too hard on the depth chart, although he's extremely knowledgeable. He might have been able to hang. I don't know. God, that was a good interview.
Yes.
But Tootin is recovering from a minor injury. They're playing it safe with him just the last few days. And Daquan Wright has a strain. It isn't as bad as they initially thought. So that was good news on him, and they expect him to be back soon. Benji Gosnell has been getting more snaps in his absence, but I do have high hopes for Wright this year. So hoping that he gets right.
Yep.
Stone Snyder, someone we've talked about. I talked about with my friends. I think I mentioned him on another podcast before that. Well, he's no longer on the team. So scratch everything I said about him being a high floor candidate for the Mike linebacker spot.
What a bummer, man.
Yeah,
we had big expectations for him, and now he's out. But
and the expectations for the name,
I know.
Hokey Stone Snyder.
It was that's what we get. You throw out our guesses on things that are going to be impactful, and they just blow up in your face.
And maybe he wasn't picking things up. Maybe the other guys were outplaying him. That's best case scenario, right? Is that McDonald and Keller just looked so good. He couldn't compete athletically and whatever. I don't know what happened, but let's hope that that's what happened. And he's no longer with the team, which it is a bummer, but we will move forward. Some better notes. The defense is coming along, it seems like. And Spencer talked about how this could be a formidable unit. The mic seems to be narrowing down to Keller or McDonald. I think Tisdale will play too. And now he's that high floor option, but they're saying that Tisdale's working more at will.
Yeah.
So I don't, can you handicap that race at all?
I don't know. I kind of fell in love with McDonald. I don't know about you. So I mean,
I love the potential.
I'm pulling for him. I'm hoping, but let the best athlete win at the end of it all. But that's who I think, based on his initial promise, might be able to pull it out.
APR, that's Antoine Powell-Ryland, continues to impress. Probably talked about him getting off the ball really well. Burgos is getting a lot of love at the DE spot also. Probably mentioned his motor and him always going at 100 miles per hour. JC backed up a lot of that. He said, as far as the DL goes as a whole, Norrell, Fuga, and APR are at a different level than the other guys as of this moment. And hey, that's great news, because we didn't exactly know what we were going to get with APR.
We had two. We felt comfortable with two. Not great, but good. And so at least there's three now. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Burgos and Nelson are battling for a defensive end spot, according to the coaching staff. Nelson is fully healthy after dealing with a foot issue before. But the fact that Burgos is coming in and getting love from JC and competing with a guy who's already played a fair amount, that's encouraging as well. Payne is going to factor in on the inside. He also looks fully healthy after having the Achilles last year. And JC mentioned Penne and Kendricks as well. So if you look at the defensive ends, the two deep is APR, Nelson, Burgos, McCray, and McDonald, the other McDonald, in some order. And JC kept saying he's got five that he feels good about. And the more I hear about Burgos, because I pictured Burgos as that fifth guy. Maybe he's not. But either way, because Pry has been raving about McDonald on defensive end.
Which is, when was the last time you could get past three people that they were actually talking about at defensive end for the Virginia Tech Hokies? It's been a long time. I'm excited. And just having a little bit of depth. If we can spell some guys and give them a breather, they're going to be more effective. I think it's that was something I was not expecting for us to be talking about this close to the season coming up.
Yeah. So say you got five defensive end, if it works out, or even if it's just four. We also have five defensive tackles, because it's Norrell, Fuga, and Kendricks, who have all played a lot. Payne is really holding his own, and Penne played last year. So I'm not saying Penne is starter caliber, but he's someone you could get in there and rotate.
He's been with the program for 3 years now.
Yeah.
So he's got experience. that obviously a step below, but definitely good to have.
And he
have some
might get
backup
there eventually.
Yeah.
You know, Gibbons Lamal got a shout out, which is good because I think we
Yeah.
lose 4 of those defensive tackles after this year. So it's nice that maybe some of the younger guys are getting a shout out.
Yeah.
If you go to the DBs, a couple of true freshmen will be playing, according to
Mhm.
Coach Pry. And I believe he means in a backup role or a fill in role. But Mose Phillips is going to be one of those guys because I think Chris Coleman asked the players, you know, who's a young guy that's been standing out. And like so many of them said Mose Phillips on defense.
Yep.
And then at corner, according to Chris Coleman, again, he said Lovett is far enough along and has the size to play immediately and would be his guess in terms of the corners to play immediately. And I can't disagree with that. Braylon Johnson is a very skilled guy, but maybe physically isn't where Lovett is.
Yeah, he's got to beef up a little bit.
But I mean, we talked about the depth behind as good as the starting corners are, the depth behind them is all youth. And
Yes.
so some of these guys got to step up this year.
Yep, I agree.
Safety Jalen Jones, this is the last note I had on the defense, was also mentioned by Coach Marv as someone who's really been developing nicely. So you come in behind Stroman and Peoples, and you'll have Jones and Mose Phillips. And with all they've been saying about Phillips and Jones being in the program a couple of years, I'm starting to feel better about the backup safety situation. Malachi is back to looking like his old self, according to Coach. Maybe even more explosive than he was before. And Bowen harped on Malachi's burst also and how he has an ability to turn a 4-yard gain into a 6-yard gain with some of his power. And that's something we kind of saw, right? And maybe power is not even the right word. He's got like a way of just getting forward.
Yeah, it's a little bit of shiftiness. So when he on contact, he has a way as opposed to a. Sometimes you almost see like the running back like wrap up, like they wrap up with the defender, whereas he kind of finds like a little bit of an angle to squeeze out a couple more. So I guess that's power in a way, but it's kind of keeping your head up and looking for a little bit more of a lane to squeeze some more out is how I would
yeah, it's like ability for yards after contact in some like small way. I mean, Herbert was really good at that. I know he was really good at the home runs, but he was also good at just getting more yards than you'd expect every single time.
Agreed.
The QB competition. Wells is ahead by a fair margin. That was something that I think they talked about on TSL, especially in the pass game, though, this is not any news. We know that Wells is ahead in the pass game, but it doesn't, to me, this isn't seeming. They keep saying it's a competition, but it doesn't seem like a real competition at this point, especially when you had the Bowen commentary that he doesn't really see a 2-quarterback system happening.
Yeah. This is, I don't want to put pride into these shoes, but this is the Fuente. There's a competition because he just wants to say that there's a competition to the end. And that is not, it's something that's indicative of Fuente or Pry. It's indicative of what a lot of college football coaches do these days. There is this thought process that you want everybody competing right up until, the season starts, is my take on it. I could very well be wrong, but that's my take.
Caden Moore is getting some love after his move to center, and that's been going on for a couple of weeks here. His physicality has been praised, and Pry talked about how Laith Ganem, the left tackle / left guard freshman, is in the conversation for playing time this fall and could be that swing guy in a pinch. I mean, Ganem, if he's playing any serious amount of snaps, something's probably gone wrong.
Right. Yes.
but at least it gives you hope for the future that he's going to be a key piece for us. And then he mentioned Garrett, Dixon, and Meadows as other redshirt freshmen that are probably going to play, because we do have a lot of redshirt freshman offensive linemen, which is better than being true freshmen. I mean, they have a little bit of weight on them, a little bit of technique on them. So if we do get in a situation where we've got injuries, we may be able to put in a Brody Meadows and survive for a couple weeks, but we're really going to need the offensive line to stay healthy this year.
Yeah. We're like we talked about that during our previews and things like that. It's just the lack of depth of the offensive line is the biggest risk that could cause this season to seriously derail from, not being as successful as we maybe want to being mediocre to like it really going downhill. That it's probably the offensive line.
And with as much as we've heard about Caden Moore and Parker Clements taking on leadership roles, if either of those guys goes down, it's
Yep.
going to be a problem, like a big problem. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's root for good health. Felton, someone
Mhm.
that in the springtime, I hadn't been hearing much about Felton, but
Mhm.
lately the coaches have been really talking about his size, how fast he is, how explosive he is. And he is 6'5". I'm getting real excited about his potential. For the listeners that might not remember, he's the Norfolk State transfer.
Yep.
And Bowen is saying he's picked up the offense pretty seamlessly.
I think you and I may have mentioned this, that you kind of had some headliners that stole the show, and it made it tough. And whether or not he was getting any chatter was probably because of that. And I'm very, very excited to hear that, his size is also kind of being accommodated with some speed and athleticism that's getting people juiced up about him.
We don't often have those like physical freaks.
Yep.
That's why we like Kelly Lawson so much. And that's why
Yes.
we're probably going to like Felton a lot, because he's a freak. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
get many 6'5" plus skill players. If it's not an offensive
Mhm.
lineman or maybe a D end, like you don't get that many guys that are that big.
No, there's not a whole lot of them outside of places like Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State. Not many teams get them, or at least ones that pan out.
Mhm. Aiden Green, another one of the freshmen, he's been getting some compliments in the wide receiver room. And they say he's all business. He's big. He runs really well, and he's very mature for his age. And he just keeps getting better and better. So we have all those freshman wide receivers in addition to the DBs. It's going to be fun to see. Like, you got 5 of them or whatever it is. Which
Mhm.
one will pop? And maybe it's going to be Aiden Green, and
Yep.
that would be great. Bowen called Gosnell Mr. Consistency and that he can play all 3 positions. Continue to hear the good stuff about Gosnell.
Yep.
And then at punt return, we've got Holloway and Lane working at that
Mhm.
position. That was just my last little note there. Did you have a chance, and you probably didn't because you just got back from vacation, to
Yeah.
watch the ACC road trip?
I did not.
Is that
get
on
a
your DVR
chance.
probably sitting there
Yes.
waiting for you?
Yep. It is.
I just tuned into it today. I finally had a
Mhm.
chance to sit down and watch it, and it was cool. I mean, it's always fun to see Eddie Royal back on campus
Yep.
and chopping it up with the guys. Mark Packer's also, he's fun to watch. I
Right.
like Packer, and he thinks we're going to a bowl this year. That's something he
Okay.
said on the show,
That's good.
and also said that the team, because he was there last year,
Yep.
the team looks different physically than
Okay.
when he visited campus last year. So
That's
that,
very good to hear.
yeah, I mean, and I respect his opinion, so I like that.
Mhm.
They had Jalen Lane come on the set. They had Eddie talking with Tyler Bowen when he was going through the receivers. They had a visit to the helmet lab, which about how our helmet lab's like the most renowned in the country. So
Mhm.
that was cool. And then they had a portion of an interview with both with Pry and Beamer, like in the same room, sitting next to each other,
Oh,
just
that's
talking
wild.
about 1995 and him coming in and the lunch pail. And it was, I know some of that's like, you know, how do you say, pandering maybe,
Yes.
but I loved it. I
Yes.
thought it was great.
They do it for a reason. So
Yeah.
it's pandering, but that's because people love that kind of stuff. So no, I'm excited to watch that. Hopefully, I'm catching up on work. Hopefully, I'll get some time later this week.
Oh, and they also had the Moore brothers. They went through the
Oh,
brothers that have
really?
played for Virginia Tech. So they brought the Moore brothers, both Caden and Braylon, onto the set and like almost did like the dating game where like, okay, write down his favorite movie. And it was,
Oh,
those
yeah,
guys are just fun, man. And like,
yeah.
it really seems like Caden's, it's funny because one is 2 years older than the other one.
Mhm.
And it's so apparent. Like Caden
Really?
is like a man and Braylon still kind of looks like a kid.
Yeah.
And they're going to be good. I think Caden's going to be really good for us at center this year. Kind of brings that Eric Gallo
Yes.
attitude to
Yeah.
the offensive line. So
Chippiness and maturity to go along with it.
yeah, very easy to root for set of brothers. So the O line should be in good hands going forward. But that's just about all I had from camp notes. There's going to be more. There's going to
Yep.
be some surprises in terms of position switches or who's starting here or whatever. But for right now, it sounds like guys are staying healthy
Yep.
and camp is going well and proceeding in the right direction, despite still being, we know it's a rebuild. We know
Yep.
we're have a lot of work in front of us, but it sounds like the things we wanted to see, like wide receiver depth, defensive end depth, those things are coming along.
Baby steps to the grocery store. Baby steps. So keep it moving. I like
All
it.
right, let's do one more ad read before we go. Prize Picks. 2D Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy app that's going to allow you to make plays with our very own Hokies football players this fall. You can be in Virginia and make plays on Hokies players. So you'll be able to bet on, I shouldn't say bet, make plays on Jalen
Make
Lane's
plays.
receptions, Tootin's yards, Ali Jennings, our quarterbacks. But in the meantime, football, we got preseason going, man. We got MLB, esports, golf. They have literally everything on Prize Picks. Lots of opportunities to get money in your pocket. So download the Prize Picks app and use code Memory Lane. That's Memory Lane, all one word, for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. And until next time, go Hokies.